While each artist might have their own personal view of the issue, they may see that it may have a different impact on the wider industry. Do they think ArtStation's decision will be effective? Or do they have any other suggestions or alternatives? So we asked them, do you think that removing them, which is the cumulative likes and views counter on profiles, will lessen the toxicity of the community? What alternatives do you suggest?
I guess the goal for removing them, right, had to do something with something of the toxicity in the community. And this is literally nothing I really know nothing about, probably not best fit to comment on that, because I've never been a part, I've never even seen any drama or toxicity in the community itself. All my interactions, individuals on there, has been positive. There was like this one time where this younger guy, I guess, felt the urge to critique, every upload I did. And it's like, I just blocked him. A, because I wasn't looking for a critique, and B, because he was just a young and inexperienced artist. I just didn't need it. No thank you.
This is a rather complicated question. I'm not sure if it will lessen the toxicity any further, because people will inevitably still try to find a way for validation, especially those who are new to the internet. And it's hard to say, because it all really depends on each person and their personality. And I think it will be great if we can let people know how to be balanced and have healthier approach about validation. Most of the time, the need for validation stems from each person's upbringing, and each person sees and needs validation differently. This also means deep inside that many people create art only for other people and barely for oneself. I just hope people can be more honest with what they really want to do.
Yes, because people, like I said before, will inherently compare themselves to each other. It's like leaderboards in a game or a ladder. Like the number of followers, the higher it is, the higher you are on the top. And I feel like by removing it, it kind of like removes that vision from newer artists as well, that numbers are everything, whereas making art is everything on this industry. So good move on ArtStation. As for an alternative, nothing really. I mean, I feel like it's a good thing that people are removed off that idea that follower count matters a lot, whereas good work is ultimately what you should strive for, and the only thing that should matter, because good work brings the people in, and if you're doing good work, you will get those numbers. So I think people should just focus on that and focus less on trying to get attention or numbers.
This is probably the thing that we discussed most when talking about this amongst friends. I never saw any of the toxicity that's mentioned. I don't know what they're referring to in particular, but ArtStation has always had one of the friendliest comment sections I've ever seen on a social media website. Even in the occasional sort of argument that I see in sections, which can often just be quite amusing for artists alike, no one's ever comparing numbers to each other. Ultimately, it just seems to be fixing a problem that I never experienced or saw myself, so I have no real suggestions for alternatives because I didn't see what was wrong to begin with.
So I'm sure all of you guys have noticed something in common with the answers. And honestly, I find it to be the same way as well. I've never seen any of the toxicity that has been mentioned. And apparently ArtStation has been receiving a lot of messages and they've been seeing it around. So maybe it is something that happens on a private level and we're not privy to. So that much I can understand. But at the same time, my question is then, who are these artists that are messaging? Are they art directors at AAA companies and big studios that are complaining about the cumulative likes? Or is it a huge range of artists? Or is it mostly just inexperienced artists that have barely had any life experience or coping mechanism? Or maybe other issues as well? There's like Rika has touched upon, there's so many different reasons why, due to personality and maybe different issues in their life. But I do think it is important to question who exactly are these people contributing towards the toxicity. And if it really is a vocal minority that I don't think have much of a bearing on the industry, and considering ArtStation is more of a website that's aimed towards professionals and a professional presentation, and even look and feel to them, then should they really be listening to the people that I suppose don't have as much of a standing in the industry? That's my thoughts.
That's a really good point, and I completely agree with you. I mean, if the people who are complaining are just new artists who are very much influenced by these numbers, then I think ArtStation should never have catered to them in a way. But I can see why ArtStation kind of bent down to their will. It's because they keep getting this hateful messages or email from them, and it's just getting unbearable. So I can see why they removed it completely, and hopefully it will help a bit. But I don't think it will completely remove the toxicity, which is kind of sad, because in my opinion, toxicity is difficult to remove. It just comes down to the individual person to be a better version of themselves.
Definitely. But my thoughts, and this goes beyond art, and I really do think the only way to become stronger is to gradual exposure to, you can say, some of these triggers in your life, things that trigger negative emotions. And I think to be someone that's well adjusted and to be someone that is successful, I'm not even talking about just in art, but to be someone in life that is able to handle a lot of the things that are thrown at you, what life has to throw at you, and to come out the other side, triumphant. I do think that you need to be slowly exposed and also learn how to deal with these emotions. In the same way, I think when you have a child, and if you have parents that are too overprotective of that child, I think that child would grow up not being able to fend for themselves. They wouldn't have had time to even have any bruises or scars that they would have had to learn to, I guess, live with or even heal over time. And I think they would grow up to become very fragile. And there will come a point in that child's life eventually, whether they have to move away for college or the parents pass away, that they have to learn to fend for themselves. And if they have not had the opportunity to learn to process all of it and deal with it, I do think that they will just be eaten alive by, I guess you can say, the real world, and not in this fantasy padded room that their fantasy world that their parents have trapped them in for so long. Exactly. And I agree with Rika as well when she says it's not just in job fields and in other job fields and not just art stuff. It's life in general. I do think the only way to become stronger, and if you want to bring it back to art community itself, the only way that we can grow stronger as an industry or community or as an individual is to learn how to deal with it.
I totally agree. Carta. Carta.
Yeah, and Carta has a great tip as well. He said all these toxic people need to stop listening to Britney Spears' Toxic. Yeah, but with that said,
want to ask the second
I'll
question, the second part to this question, which is about the alternatives. Do you have any alternatives that you can think of, or maybe suggestions on how to improve this situation to make it better?
Well, if we're going to go through ArtStations...
I guess to make it more of a win-win situation for everyone.
Yes. So there's two scenarios, in my opinion. So first of all, if we're going to go through with ArtStation's logic of actually numbers equals toxicity, then I think ArtStation should just go all the way through and remove any sort of metric on the site. Individual likes, followers, and all of those things. Because those, I think, are actually numbers that I even see my friends in the studio talking about more than these cumulative likes and views. So if ArtStation wants to follow through with that logic, take it all out. However, there's also a different side of things where I've read in some comment section where they said that the removal of these counters actually gives them, actually prevents them from tracking their progress. And a lot of these people don't talk about how theirs fares in comparison to others. So if that's the case, why not allow these people to keep their numbers, but just keep it private so they can still see the individual amount of likes and followers on their page and see their growth and use it as a way to strategize the way that they use their social media, what to post and things like that. But still,
I think,
preventing people from being toxic, I suppose, from comparing these metrics.
yeah, I think keeping it private will be a very good thing. So not removing it completely, but just keep the numbers so that only you can see it. I think for the stats, if you're a pro user, you can see it, but not if you're a regular user. And I think that's a really bad idea with this happening now. I think they should just open the feature to everyone. And then also think that they should, with the same logic, remove the stats from the challenges, because again, the challenges are not supposed to be popularity contests, but it should be seen based on the merits of the quality alone, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I actually think that it is just a half-assed attempt by ArtStation to justify the removal of it. They could just say it's, stats that no one looks at, so I'm just going to remove it anyways. Plus, it also attracts toxicity. If they just said that, then I think I would be like, okay, I get it. You can remove it. But if they're going to go through with the logic of toxicity, then I would just say that, no, I don't think that that's going to really change much. And I think it's beyond ArtStation's control. It's human nature. And that's a bigger issue that's beyond ArtStation's jurisdiction or power.
And some of the comments is, one of them from Mario says, Instagram will remove likes, he thinks, for the improvement of people's mental health. And Uribo said, Instagram is actually already doing that, at least for some users, at least for post likes. So what do you think about Instagram removing the likes, Jourdan? Because that's a much bigger platform than ArtStation.
Just keep it private, honestly, because I would like to see growth. Like,
yeah,
I do think it is a good way to see if you are reaching a wider audience and things like that. And back then it might have controlled me, but it doesn't anymore. So no, I'd still like to keep it, but I can understand why they want to remove it. But it still comes down to bigger issue. Is that, in my opinion, we need to just toughen up a lot of people. I don't think we should remove the challenge or source of stress on them, but rather maybe it's even up to the parents to limit their kids' use of social media. It's really beyond the jurisdiction, I think, of these social media companies.
Yeah, and one of the good points that Tyler mentioned about the likes, it's also a metric to help the artist to gauge which artwork they might sell as a print. So I think just by keeping it private and making sure that it's still accessible to the artist, it's always good because of certain things like that. So it doesn't have to be shown to the public. Keep it private and make it so that the artist can still see growth in their own journey.
And Mario, yes, I do agree. It is easier to say because I can't control how tough people will be. It's very, very true. Social media has been thrust upon us so fast. It's just in the last decade or so that it has exploded and really changed the way people have, I guess, gone about their lives. And I do think it'll be a very gradual thing before we see any significant change. But I still think that we should not be creating fragile people by actually removing the source, because even if we hide those numbers, there's going to be other situations in life where there's no real numbers but competition is present. If they have no idea, or even in a social situation, what if, for example, they seem to not be as popular as someone else? There's always going to be some other reason that people find a lack of self-value, and it is difficult. I know, I've gone through that as well. But I do think it is a much bigger issue than social media can handle, honestly speaking.
Okay, so should we move on to the next question, Jourdan?
Yes. Before I ramble on too much. But I do think that I feel quite strongly about it just because, it's not necessarily because I think I'm much better than a lot of these people. It's more that I've struggled with it a lot too. but I really found a lot more happiness, and I think enjoyed life a lot more the moment I actually just confronted it and realized that I put too much value on these metrics, and just decided to do things more for myself rather than other people. And I want other people to realize this as well. And perhaps it's better if they hear it from someone else, and maybe not the same way that they're hearing it from me, but I guess I wish that I heard someone tell me that way back then. So yeah.
I can tell you now.
Yeah. Anyways. So not to get too much more into it then. So let's move on to the next question.